Welcome back to Room 1-on-1 with the Homeboys. It's another away game, it's another cup game, and it's another trip down the road to Kilmarnock. As always, I am delighted to welcome back Craig Anderson to the show to get the lowdown on our Ayrshire neighbours. Well, Craig, how are you, pal?
I'm doing well, yes. Better than I was for most of last season, so can't complain. We'll wait and see how long it lasts.
Aye, well. Early stage of season, so it's always good to kind of look at last season, and your response there is a perfect segue if I can get into things, right? Right, last season, so Derek McInnes, who'd obviously brought Killie straight back up after the season in championship, replacing Tommy Wright. He overseen quite a turnover in the squad and headed into the last season with the League Cup. In the group with Fraser, Bratt, Partick Thistle, Montrose, Stenhouse, Muir, 3 wins for 4 and a draw defeat meant Killie finished the group in second place behind Thistle, setting up an away tie with Hearts. A great 1-0 win in late August saw Killie through to the quarters and a home tie with Dundee United. A really nice 2-1 win set up again with Celtic at Hampden in mid-January. A 2-0 reverse saw Kilmarnock's League Cup challenge end. In the league, a struggle. When we spoke early last season, I wouldn't say you were expecting a struggle, however, you would understand the struggle. And sure enough, the struggle it was, really. From day one to the World Cup break in November, Killie found himself in 11th place, jumping up 1 place in the final match day after a nice 1-0 win at home over Hibs. So at that 16-game point, Kilmarnock had won only 4 matches, drawn 3 times, 9 defeats, 12 goals scored, 27 conceded, a minus 15 goal difference and 15 points on the board, 3 ahead of Dundee United and joint with Ross County. During that point, things never really helped in late October as Kyle Lafferty was suspended by the SPFL after a run-in with a supporter. I don't even want to talk about that. The 10 games was a blow, and ultimately we see Lafferty released from his contract in February due to breach of club rules. So at that stage, Craig, what were your thoughts, mate? I mean, whilst you were delighted to get Derek McInnes when we spoke last time, and you were kind of similarly happy to hold on to him, it wasn't great at that point.
Yeah, I think the first half of last season, I think it's different when you're a newly promoted club that's not been in the top flight for a while, when you maybe expect to struggle a bit. Mm-hmm. But we'd been in there, you know. It was like 1 year out. I didn't expect us to have been that bad relative to where we'd been before, but it didn't click. We had a lot of players hung over for the start of the championship season that had been signed in 2-year deals, and plenty of them weren't good enough, and it felt everything was still a bit patchwork. And to be honest, yeah, I think coming into January last year, I was a wee bit more confident. I can't remember the last time we spoke, Scott, but we had that semi-final with you guys at Hampden coming up, and therefore I think the thought amongst a lot of Killie fans was that the money from that game, you know, the tickets and all the rest of it, and the TV and the prize money and all the rest of it, would probably let us go out and buy, or not buy, but
that's
sign.
Interesting.
And really happened. We brought in Kyle Vassell, who's now been announced our captain. We'll probably talk a bit more about him later on. Didn't he start that well? It turned out to be a pretty important signing. Scored the goals at the end of the season that kept us up. And we brought in a boy, Luke Chambers, on loan from Liverpool, who is an absolutely fantastic player, my left back, that will be spending his career at a higher level than Kilmarnock. I'm pretty sure he was 18 and was probably the most talented of the lot. So, but it was a small number. It wasn't what we were expecting, and yeah, the struggle continued a bit.
Aye, right. So touching on that, so you see, after the World Cup, it wasn't much better. However, due to the form of relegation rivals, Kilmarnock would ultimately secure that 10th place finish and avoid the playoffs and relegation places. 3 wins from the 5 in the relegation section of the split, ultimately keeping you up. I would imagine wins over Livingston, Dundee United and Ross County, the last 2 essential. So after 38 matches, we had 9 wins, 7 draws, 22 losses, 37 goals scored, 60 conceded, minus 23 goal difference, 40 points on the board, 3 behind St Johnstone in 9th, and crucially 6 points ahead of Ross County in 11th. Scottish Cup started in late January, a 1-0 win over Dumbarton, and then Dundee United took Killie into another quarter-final, this time a disappointing 2-1 defeat to Championship side Inverness saw them fall out of the Cup. You've kind of touched on it there. I'd be interested to talk about the recruitment of last season before we even talk about this season. So, I mean, rough viewing, but ultimately job done last season.
Yeah, so in terms of recruitment last season, I think it was October last year, I think, that Derek McInnes brought in Russ Richardson, who was the guy that he worked with for most of his time at Aberdeen as his recruitment.
Right, okay.
And McInnes has talked over and over again about how he's going to be the most important signing he ever makes and all the rest of it, because he basically said last summer, which was his first kind of proper window he had with us, last summer he was basically doing everything. Like, he was taking the team, he was trying to coach the team, and he was trying to deal with all the transfers, and it didn't work that well. He didn't do it. Wasn't like a terrible window, but we never really got the quality that I think we were expecting. And then January,
there was a lot of loans,
a lot of loans.
I mean, again, we'll come to it once we start talking about the squad and the incomes and outgoings of this summer. But you know, I'm looking at your squad list on Wikipedia, and it's massive, And then I go and look at this season, it's a lot tidier. But all the loan guys, that's the fucking, they're all away, do you know what I mean?
And that was the thing. So I think I spoke about the January business. I think given that he had his new recruitment guy in, we were expecting a wee bit more. McInnes used the phrase that he hit the post quite a few times and try to bring guys in. And we ultimately got away with it, I would say, because I think him by his own admission, it wasn't a good window. But kind of fast forward to this one, and I think they both knew they had to get this one right.
Yeah.
Probably a few more players than a lot of fans expected were kept on. There was quite a few that I thought would probably be moved on that hung around, but we have signed 10 players. I assume you'll be probably going on to talk about that, but it just looks a lot better, and it's got much more of the feel of the kind of, the Derek McInnes we know from Aberdeen and all that in terms of what's there. So it does feel like maybe it took him a wee while to adapt again, and it feels like he's maybe kind of finally got his feet under the table with it. And I think a lot of the support, I mean, we'll talk about particularly first league game of the season, which can't have gone much better. Really, he's got everyone back on side, and then we obviously had the result yesterday as well, which helped. So I think everyone's a lot happier than they were for most of last season.
Yeah. I mean, it is really interesting. Again, it's like that's why I really enjoy doing things like this, because you're so straight and blinkered towards your own team. You never think about it. Derek McInnes come in halfway through a season, and as you say, Scottish clubs live and die on their transfers. I mean, that's a fact here, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? You get one right, it sets up your whole year. And Derek McInnes working with guys he trusts and working with guys, you can literally see the difference that would make to his own mentality. Working with a guy that he knows is out, and he's trying to identify the guys that he knows he likes. Do you know what I mean? That's massive. Rather than some wahoo turning up, I've got all these guys, you're like, no use. You know what I mean?
And that's what it felt like a bit last season. Like the guys they brought in loan, they were kind of hit and miss, and some of them looked good for a couple of weeks, and it felt very much like it was very take what he could get. He didn't have that support network that he'd been used to, and you've seen the difference this time around. It seems a bit more targeted, and it seems a bit more like there's quality coming in and all the rest of it. And so I've always liked him in terms of the way he talks about the game and stuff. Like he's pretty honest, and he's never really kind of shied away from the mistakes he's made and stuff like that. So that's always there's nothing worse than I think a manager who you're doing badly and he's kind of pretending everything's fine, and we never really got that, which has kind of kept me on board. And then I've been really impressed with what we've done this season, transfer wise. A couple of players that have come in that I've kind of been hoping we would sign for a while, and
okay, we'll fire right into that then, mate. So last time we spoke, and you've kind of touched on it there, Craig, is that there was a load of legacy players, and McInnes would. You expected McInnes would be looking to make loads of moves in terms of getting guys out the door to bring his own things, right? So we'll go and look at the outs first, right? So there's a whole bunch of frees. Midfielders Blair Alston and Scott Robinson departed for Partick Thistle. Lee Hodgson signed for Eastleigh. Dylan McGowan, who had been on loan at Hamilton last season, released, still no got a club. Like Hodgson, Alan Power ended his second spell with the club and joined Morton. Defender Chris Stokes left for Morecambe. Callum Waters, a 27-year-old defender, departed for Morton. As Taylor, another English defender, left the club and joined Bradford City. Kieran McEnroy has left the club for a season-long loan with Partick Thistle after really being a bit part player the last season. So I've looked at each of the guys, and obviously Alan Power's the biggest name there that I would certainly reckon. Ash Taylor, obviously, he's played around Scotland. But for the appearances of these guys, they all seem to play a big part in the championship, but last season were kind of maybe the writing was on the wall for them. I don't know if that would be right. So incomings, Robbie Diaz, is it Diaz or Diaz?
I think Diaz.
Right. So the 23-year-old defender, he was signed up for Inverness. Kyle McGuinness was picked up for Hibs, 24-year-old midfielder. 28-year-old Northern Ireland international winger Matty Kennedy was signed for Aberdeen. We'll chat about him. 27-year-old keeper Kieran O'Hara was signed from Colchester United. Manchester-born stopper started his career with Man United. Lewis Mayo, the centre-back, who impressed on loan for Rangers last season, signed up full-time, which is a massive one, I think. Former Aberdeen and Norwich winger Marley Watkins was picked up as well. And we'll do the loans and then I'll come back to a question. I've got Will Dennis, a 23-year-old keeper, signed up on a season loan for Bournemouth. 23-year-old Dublin defender was signed up for Ipswich Town. I've actually just blanked his name. So what's his name?
Corey Ndaba.
Corey Ndaba, obviously a good Irish name there. Former centre-back Stuart Finlay made his third return to Killie with a season loan from Oxford. Thomas Davis, a 19-year-old Welsh left-back, was also signed on loan from Cardiff City. Right, so we'll talk about it more when we come to that, but you've signed up 2 goalkeepers again. And where is Sam Walker? Is he done?
Because so it's a bit strange. Sam Walker really grew into it last season, and he was a major player in the second half of last season. He really finished the season very well, and I think the club and McInnes definitely really wanted to keep him. But he's from down south, and I think he had family reasons for wanting to go back down. However, he's not found a club as far as we can tell, so it's kind of all gone a bit quiet, which seems a bit odd because he's a good goalkeeper. He shouldn't really have had any trouble finding a club, so I don't know what's going on there. I think we've moved on, given that we've signed 2 goalkeepers, but he was we would have. I think everyone would have been really happy to have just had him because he was reliable. Maybe not like an amazing Premiership goalkeeper, but definitely somebody that wasn't going to let you down. And yeah, so as far as I know, he's that he'll not be back at this point. Really, never say never, I suppose.
Aye. Right, so before we get the squads, we're 6 games in the season for Killie anyway, and I presume you've had a good look at your new guys that you wouldn't have known, and then obviously guys like McGuinness and all that, Kennedy, who we've seen over the years. I mean, like I said, Matt Kennedy. For some reason, I've taken to Matt Kennedy. I really like him as a player. And I was talking to Gary for the ABZ podcast last week ahead of the Aberdeen game, and I was saying I was surprised he's let Matt Kennedy go because on his day, Matt Kennedy's a brilliant player. I mean, he's been great in Scottish football, but he was saying that they don't play with wingers. So, I mean, I think that's a great signing. As I say, Lewis Mayo, even how much you'd struggled last season, looked like a very good player who's kind of futures up the way. Kyle McGuinness, a good Scottish SPFL player. Looks like a really, really strong window for you, eh?
Yeah, I've been really pleased with it. It was the window I expected us to have last summer, to be honest, and it's taken a wee while, but yeah, we've got there. And Kennedy, I mean, Kennedy was a product. He's a local boy, and he was a product of our youth system. And I think made his debut for Killie at 16, kind of first time around. And
he got a big move, didn't he?
He went to Everton. So I think that move probably that came in kind of 2012, right after the kind of Rangers carry on, and I think the club were needing the money kind of thing at that point, and that probably made was a pretty important sale to make as well. And then I think we'd kind of been expecting him back at some point. He's
one of the ones
back to Scotland, and it's good to have him back. And it was funny because he gave the interview when we signed him, and he signed a 3-year deal, so it's pretty clear that's kind of saying, I think he'll see out that deal and he might be there a bit longer. But he gave an interview saying he was back home and all the rest of it, and he felt like home. I don't think he's a Killie fan, I think he's a Rangers fan, but he was talking about kind of being back home and all the rest of it, and all some of our fans were saying, well, how come every time you used to come back to Rugby Park you were giving the stand the fingers and all the rest of it, because he always kind of got right up for playing against us. He's been at Killie since, or he was at Killie from he was about 6 or 7, so he had a long association with the club. He's probably been the pick of the players so far this season as well. I've always really liked him, and yeah, he's just we had Jordan Jones last season who had a very good first spell at Killie, but it didn't happen for Jones last season. It was a shame because he was a player I really liked, but that move to Rangers was a step too far for him in terms of how good he was. He wasn't up to that, and it seems to have set him back a lot. And yeah, to be honest, Kennedy looks immediately like a big upgrade on the Jones we had last season. So yeah, that's the one for me that was a really big move. And then you mentioned Mayo as well. Not someone that's not going to make it. He was never going to make it at Rangers again. Probably just not quite good enough. But in 22-23, he came into it last season in terms of his loan deal, and then we paid a fee for him to get him on board, which is pretty rare for us.
Oh, did you?
I mean, one of those that it's worth doing because, again, I think a 3-year contract, and the hope would be that he'll probably not see the 3 years out. If he sees the 3 years out, he's done something wrong, because I think the idea will be probably 1 or 2 years down the line they can be sold on, because if he gets things right, he could probably play for Scotland, because I think he's that good. He's composure and all the rest of it. There's a wee similarity to Jack Hendry, I think, in terms of like he's good at a lot of things, but he's also maybe not actually that good at defending, but he gets away with it. He's like composed and reads the game and all the rest of it, and so I'm really pleased to get him back in, and he's made a really good start since he came back. And but you talked about a lot of names there, and because we have done a lot of business. Dees that we brought in consistently was so good against us for Inverness in the Championship, and then when they put us out of the Cup last season. Ex-Celtic youth player, Dees, and he has been rock solid in the middle of the defence. So he's kind of been, again, very impressive and a very upward, another player who's on a kind of upward trajectory. And you were reading out the ages of all those players. I think we've only got 2 players over 30 now in the squad. It's a pretty young, hungry squad. And it has the vibes of McInnes trying to build a squad that he can keep together for a while, rather than it being, as it was last season, I kind of feel a temporary seeming thing.
Yeah. Well, we've spoke numerous times about Scottish League and how 1-year deals happen so often, like a big bust of 1-year deals, and then if you hit it right, they'll maybe hang about. If they don't, if they hit it really good, they end up bugging off some English Championship scene, or they just disappear. I mean, for years, Kilmarnock had numerous big centre forwards who would turn up 1 year and disappear the next year. But like you said, there looks like a structure there. What I was noting, I mean, that year in the Championship, you have to kind of build accordingly, I suppose, don't you? You have to kind of just get in and out. You'd love to batter it, but you just need to get back out so you can start making a bit of dough. But it was noticeable that Kilmarnock, really looking at the squad, certainly before, there's no, like Hibs are selling guys for $1 million, Aberdeen are selling guys for $1 million, 2 million, whatever. There doesn't seem to be that at Kilmarnock the new, and I mean, like, we need it at a level. We need to sell Jota and stuff like that to make things turn. And that's look at that, as you say, Lewis Mayo. He's somebody that you hope 2 years down the line, somebody's coming in for the Championship, £2 million. Like Robin McCrory. I mean, that kind of idea, I presume.
Yeah, and that's part of it's got to be part of the model. When we've had a spell where we were doing quite well out of it, and then we've not really sold it. most of the sales we've been making recently have been like young players. And when I say young players, it's like 16-year-olds that haven't even kicked a ball before. Like the English clubs are coming in and swooping for them. And we've got another young centre forward, Bobby Wales, who's just turned 18, his contract's up at the end of this season, and it sounds like he's no signing one. And so there's this
and from what you've seen of him, does he look like he's...
We've not seen loads of him, and I think it's partly... I feel like there's this weird standoff where if he signed a contract, he'd probably get more minutes. Because he hasn't. It's like that. As far as I can tell, he's kind of in the Scotland youth squads and stuff. I think he'll have a chance because he's quite he's a pest kind of forward. But that's what it looks like now. We've got the youth team boys coming through, and then we're starting to sign guys who, if they do well, there's a potential of kind of selling them on. I talked about Dees, the centre half, as well, is in the same boat. And then we're supplementing that with a wee bit experience. I think, Finlay, to get Finlay back, he's the best centre half we've had in probably 20 years. Like brilliant under Steve Clarke. He was one of the best in the country, and it's not gone well for him since he left. He went out to America and he had a great time, but maybe football wise, the team in Philadelphia I went to had two excellent centre halves that are still there, that have been there for years, and he just couldn't break in. He went down to Oxford, and I think he had a chance under one manager, and then they changed manager, and the new guy didn't like him. And I think the only reason he is back at Killie is because there's the Euros coming up, and I think he thinks if he has a good year with us, Steve Clarke knows him, Steve Clarke likes him, there might be a chance. And so being visible and going somewhere that he knows he'll
100%
have a chance. I think that's the only reason he's back at us rather than kind of hanging about in England again. So between all that, like, we've got the experience in, and we've Kennedy's another one in that boat now. We're kind of a bit more experience, and we've got these guys that are upwardly mobile kind of players, and McGuinness is maybe in that boat as well, that he wouldn't be playing for us if he didn't have the injury history he's had with because he got a big move to Hibs. I think he got a 5-year deal at Hibs when they signed him from St Mirren, and then they paid him off eventually because he was just basically not kicking a ball. But that's kind of the market we're operating in, is these gambles and these guys that if it goes well, we'll be laughing, and if it doesn't, we'll be greeting. So I think that's where we are. But I've, as I say, been really impressed. Who else have we not talked about that we signed? And Daba is a young kind of left back, left centre half. He had a loan spell, a wee bit of a few tweets deleted by their fans after that, and all the rest of it, because they had their Corey and Daba. There's a guy, one of the guys I followed, his Corey and Daba Ayr United fan club. Kind of jokes set up, and he was swiftly deleting that. He started quite well. He's on loan from Ipswich, and I think he's basically been he's been at Ipswich for years and just constantly getting sent out on loan, which at 23 is quite odd. But he looks all right. He started both league games so far. The boy Davies we've brought in from Cardiff is backup. I don't know he'll play very much. And then the two keepers, Dennis is the one that's had the gloves so far. He's much less experienced, and my feeling is that he hasn't been signed to be number one. But the guy O'Hara that we've brought in, who's an Ireland international goalkeeper, he's a couple of caps for them. I think with the story is that he's had a bit of a niggle since he's kind of arrived, so he's been getting eased in. It wouldn't surprise me if O'Hara ends up being the number one, but the guy Dennis, after a bit ropey looking League Cup campaign, we've had 2 clean sheets to start the season, so I suspect he'll continue. You can't argue, but is that all the signings? Who else have we brought in? Oh, Watkins is again, that's experience, and that's just a forward that knows the league. And McInnes has talked about the fact that we're trying to bring in a centre forward, and that's been his target, and he's been talking about it for weeks. I assume we'll get one, but that's the big glaring hole now. Is getting
any names that you're thinking?
There was a lot of chat for a while that it might have been Sam Cosgrove that he obviously had at Aberdeen, but it looks like he's going to another English club. So whether we were interested or not, or whether we were interested in having to got him or what, but I think that's where the guy Richardson comes in, because he's based down south, so he's kind of looking at English-based players, because I think it'll be someone from it'll be someone from lower leagues in England, or it'll be a lone player from Premier League in England or whatever. But we probably do need that striker, because Vassell that we spoke about, although he's very good, is very fragile. He's like physically, like he's constantly getting injured. He's a very oddly built guy. He's like really stocky, and the type of forwards that just constantly get knocks and injuries and stuff. And that, you can't rely on him. And then we've not got a lot beyond that, because we've got a guy in Cameron who's out of our youth team, who is 23. Everyone was a bit surprised he got a year's deal, and he's a Killie fan and all the rest of it, but he's very raw, and I don't think he's going to make it as a Premiership striker, but he's big. So that's so I suspect there's going to be, I don't know whether it'll be in before we play you at the weekend or not, but I'm suspecting we'll be at least another striker in before the season kind of wraps up.
Right, once again, you can tell you're an expert at this, mate. Your segue there. So we'll get to the squad, right? And again, I'll lean on you. You talked about Vassell there. He was somebody who caught my, when I watched the highlights, he caught my attention straight away, because I didn't know who he was, and he was captain. And I thought at least my SPFL knowledge would say that I know who the captain of fucking Kilmarnock was, but I was like, I'm there. But I do look at the squad, and like I said earlier on, it's a lot tidier. Last season, you look at the squad's mad, because it's just so many bodies playing. It looks a lot tidier, a lot more trustworthy. As you say, you can probably do with another couple of bodies in there. So aside from the guys we've spoke about, who are your most valuable players to you for a season going ahead? Like Daniel Arms. I'm looking at the guys who have played games and stuff like that, as you see it, Innes Cameron, young guy. But there's a lot of new guys in there, do you know what I mean? Yeah,
there's not many players that have were probably at Killie the year we got relegated, and that's only 3 years ago. There's a lot of turnover. Finley's obviously been and come back. Kennedy's been and come back. So Rory McKenzie's the one that's kind of hung around the whole time, and he's a pretty important player around the club. He would be a squad player, as he always is, and he'll give his all, and he's important. But yeah, Armstrong's the one you mentioned. He was a revelation last season. He's just got a very good left foot. He's very confident, and his set pieces are really good. So that's been that was central to staying up last season. Having basically been a bit part player in the championship year, I think everyone thought he was going to be away, and then he stepped up really big last season.
And 12 goals, 47 appearances, that's fucking decent, isn't it?
And exactly, and when you see how few goals the team scored as a whole, it was a big chunk of them, and a lot of the goals that we did score were, apart from that, were centre half scoring, for his set pieces. He's he will benefit from having other good attacking players, because last year a lot of the time it was him, and everyone was on him. There's a young boy, David Watson, that we've brought in the middle of the park. So he's a youth team player, and he came in March, and basically played, apart from he got sent off against St Johnstone near the end of the season, but apart from that, he's basically played every game since, and he's just a bag of energy. He'll be an absolute nuisance to play against, just runs about a lot, and he's quite direct, and he's quite forward thinking, and he kind of snaps into tackles and everything that you'd want, and he made a big difference as well, just in terms of that. So I'd expect you'll see him being a big player again this season. He's 18, so he'll be probably in and out the team a bit.
Yeah.
Apart from that, because it is so many new players, it's hard to say where else is the importance comes, because everyone else. You're probably looking at 6 or 7 of the new signings, or if you include Mail, and that'll be the starting team, and then you're just building the box around that, and that's the good thing, because you don't want to be relying on one guy all the time. You don't have that problem at Celtic in the sense that all those stars, but last season it was a lot of the time it was give the ball to Daniel Armstrong and wait and see what happens, and we don't want that. It's not conducive to trying to finish in the top 6, which is what we want, and hopefully we've now got a bit of a squad, and that should help kind of ease a bit of that.
Interesting, really interesting. Right, so the season kicked off for Killie as we spoke earlier on in the League Cup groups. The draw paired Killie with an Athletic, Dunfermline, Raith Rovers and Albion Rovers. just like last season, 3 wins and a draw, a penalty to defeat after a 2-2 draw with Wraith, meant that Killie topped the group this time with 10 points and a goal difference of +6, a point ahead of Wraith Rovers, and set up this Sunday's second round tie with Holders Celtic, 3 p.m. at Rugby Park. League-wise, 2 games in, a win and a draw. An opening day 1-0 win over Rangers. I think it's fair to say the famous keep it tight, work hard, try and take your chance. I think that's a fair assessment of it. And that was followed up with an excellent 0-0 draw away at Hearts. From the highlights and the stats suggest that you were maybe unlucky not to get the 3 points. So I'm going to, quite obviously, very good start to the season, mate.
Yes, yeah. So it's interesting though, because I went. I only was able to get to one of the League Cup games because I had kind of weddings and holidays and all the rest of it. But went to the Annan Athletic game and we were 2-0 up in 20 minutes or something. And it was a bit of a non-event of a match, to be honest. And then I never saw the rest of them. We went to Dunfermline. It was actually quite a tough group as it goes, because there was 2 championship teams in there, and some of the groups didn't have any or only had kind of one. And so it could have been a tough group, but we went to Dunfermline and won 2-0. Sounded like it wasn't the best performance, but the result was there. And then we played Wraith at home and were quite lucky to get a draw, to be honest. And then we lost out in the shootout. So there were a few grumbles after that Wraith one, I would say. That it was a kind of more of the same as last season kind of thing. And then we went to Albion Rovers in 1-2-1, and that's obviously low in league side. And so there were, even though we won the group and came out of that and unbeaten and all the rest of it, there probably were a few grumbles or a few people still unsure about what was going on. But I think that partly because folk had been burned last season with us not being very good under the same manager and some of the same players still sticking about, but a lot of folk were saying it's just getting minutes in the legs and all that. And then we obviously went out against Rangers, and I think it was the best performance under McInnes so far, that Rangers one, because we've beat Rangers quite a lot recently. Like they don't enjoy coming to Rugby Park at all, but some of those games have been dominant performances. The ones under Steve Clarke where you're like, we look like a team, and some of them were maybe a wee bit more kind of hitting, smash and grab. That one wasn't smash and grab. It was a really, probably 0-0 might have been fairer, but we didn't really look like conceding much in that game at all. We were really organised, and as you said, when the chance came, and it came from, I've talked about Watson earlier, the young boys got a long throw, and that's kind of going to be a bit of a weapon this season as well, because we've got a lot of big guys. So the long throw, obviously, John Suter kind of stumbled over his own feet, and we took the goal. And that was a massive result in terms of just getting fans back on side. It was a result McInnes had needed for a long time. Obviously, Hearts reduced their away allocation this season and stuff, and so that was our first away game. And there were still a few tickets, and I think it was within about an hour of the full-time whistle with the Rangers game. It was like, that's the Hearts tickets gone kind of thing. It was that kind of, it's like, because as soon as that happens, it's like, folk are wanting to go and watch more of this team. And so it was a really big result, getting that one against Rangers, I think, in terms of kicking off the season, because folk were looking at the fixture list and obviously starting Rangers at home, Hearts away. You could very easily be, without even playing badly, be sitting with nothing at the end of that. So to come out of it with 4 points, it makes Sunday's game with you guys a bit of a free hit, whereas if we lost 2 league games, it would almost be like, you can imagine the knife being out, even though you can you can play well against Celtic, you can play very well against Celtic and still no get anything. You can play very well against a Celtic team and lose 3-0. I talk about the Rangers game being the best we played under McInnes. Probably one of the other best performances we put in was in that League Cup semi at Hampden, where we were very good, but Celtic had 2 goals ruled out it went 1-0 up, had 2 goals ruled out for VAR, and then obviously we weren't happy with the kind of non-penalty decision, and then you go up in it and it's 2-0, and that's what happens against Celtic. You can play well and still get nothing. So the fact that we got those two good results, and better than that, 2 good and 2 very resolute performances, sets us up really nicely. As we know from McInnes, this is where he thrives, is those games where he kind of battles and all the rest of it. We've not yet seen how well we're going to do against the rest of the league. I mean, that will come in the coming weeks, but it's just such a really positive start, and it's not something I think maybe folks saw coming. So it leaves us in a nice place, I think.
Right, this isn't a loaded question. Right, just to get that, say it's not a loaded question. So Kilmarnock have cut Celtic's allocations, as we've spoken in the past, due to the rejigging what you've done with the stadium. And obviously Celtic fans like to kind of go on their high horse. But your grun's out and you only give tickets, right? I don't really. It's frustrating for me if I don't get a ticket, but that's where it kind of, because clubs are entitled to look after themselves. Do you think that the starties have made will see that stadium kind of start to fill up, starting to get the numbers that you were getting under Steve Clarke? Because it must have been, that season must have been really, really good for you as a fan. I mean, you saw some great times in recent history under Kilmarnock, haven't you? I mean, the cup wins and stuff like that. But that season, from afar, seemed so special because he invigorated everyone. I mean, the place was buzzing. So I mean, it wasn't that easy place to go, obviously, for us. And you can see I'm a football fan, same as you. We've spoken numerous times with us. See coming to an away game and the place is heaving. Like Aberdeen on Saturday was busy for once. It was great. It was a great atmosphere, and that's what we want. Me and you want for Scottish football, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, a few bits there. So with the Steve Clarke team, I mean, that's the best team that I've ever seen play for us. It probably will be the best team I'll see in my life. If we have a better team than that, I'll be absolutely delighted, obviously. And yeah, I mean, so first of all, with the attendances, I mean, last season's average attendance was only 400 short of the Steve Clarke season. So
right, okay,
already that aspect, the season
tickets. My ignorance again.
No, but the season ticket sales are over 5,000 now, or were over 5,000 last season. There were seasons where our average attendance wasn't over 5,000, kind of, a while back. So that has happened, and that's not so much down to well, it's a bit down to the manager and the team and stuff. The club have been just doing a lot more work in the community. Folk can moan about the plastic pitch and stuff like that, but what that's let Killie do is get the training in the community, the training in the town, the players are in the town, there's a buzz there. The long-term plan, the club have got planning permission for a training centre just outside the town. Right. And then I think at that stage, once that's in, probably they'll go back to the grass pitch because they'll have because Killie were training in Glasgow for a long time and renting facilities and all the rest of it. But there's also like the previous chairman, Michael Johnston, like wasn't popular, wasn't liked, there was protests, all the rest of it. For all the faults of the current board, they are good people and they understand football fans. They've done a lot of work around the stadium. You touched on that, and so it feels like a positive place. People are making decisions for the right reasons, and there's also even stuff like this. All the sponsors, the shop sponsors, it's all local businesses. It's all everything is quite community driven, which is what I think Killie are never going to be a big behemoth in Scottish football. So that's the thing. I think it felt to me the Steve Clarke era was not built on sand, but that was a manager who was just, I mean, we've seen what he's doing with Scotland now. Like the best manager, one of the best managers probably Scottish football will see. But as soon as he left, like it kind of fell apart very quickly.
It just collapsed. Yeah. We spoke about it at the time. The appointment just seemed totally nowhere at that point, didn't you? Because I was talking again. I mean, like Hibs get beat after that mob the other week. I know they turned it around brilliantly, and when I was talking about that Gibraltar team beat us, and remember that. Yes. Who was it, Colin Bay or something? I mean, I remember sitting there going, "He's peace." I mean,
yes, and that's the thing, and it feels a bit more like now. It's not, it's not just a one-off thing. It's like if we can get it right, there's much more of a long term about it, and that aspect of the away stand for Rangers and Celtic does lean into that, because what that's allowed is there's now that standing section behind the goals, which was in that end. I suspect even the safety certificate wouldn't allow Rangers and Celtic fans in a standing section at away ends in Scottish football, but what it's done is like everyone says the atmosphere for home fans going to those games now is so much better. It wasn't pleasant, and it's hard because I mean obviously the club can. There have been times where the home support's been pretty poor for these games, but it's also driven by if you turn up to your own stadium and you're kind of outnumbered, it can put people off. And I think we've spoken before that the songs and all that doesn't bother me, but some folk don't like it and some folk don't want to take their kids and all the rest of it. What we noticed that I think the attendance for the Rangers game on the opening day was like 9,600, 9,700, whatever it was like pretty much the same as the attendances against Rangers when we did have two stands. So we're basically more or less replacing, and that's the thing, like Rangers and Celtic didn't always sell out both stands. I mean, the two stands is 8,000, I think. Like it's a lot of seats that it was before. I mean, the top tier of the away stand, the Moffat stand, which is the now home stand behind the goals, is all been replaced by offices now. Anyway, the capacity of the stands, the stadiums, probably come down 4,000 or 5,000 from what it used to be, just with all the work that's been done. But what that's done is let the community feel like they can it's a safe place to come again for those games. And that, I mean, again, I understand because I was pissed off because I couldn't get to Tynecastle yesterday for, I mean, okay, and that's because it was sold out and all that type of stuff happens. But at the same time, it's a long-term plan. The club, one of the board members kind of released a kind of document recently, and their intention is in the next 5 to 10 years to try and get to 8,000 season ticket holders. I think that's pie in the sky. I don't think that's possible. The size of the town, the size of the area, and all the rest of it. But the idea is keep going with that and turn that into a home end. And so it's a difficult thing, but the club have taken the chance on it, and the fans have kind of supported it. What I do think we'll see is it'll probably be a pretty poor attendance on Sunday because it's a cup game and folk have to actually fork out for it, and it's on the telly. But I think longer term, when you look at the next time we play in the league, it'll probably be a different story.
I mean, but it's great to hear, Craig. I mean, I proclaim no absolute love for Kilmarnock or generally any Scottish team, but I'm genuine in my hope for the best for Scottish football. And it's good to hear that Kilmarnock have actually got a plan and they've got a structure that you guys believe in, because we've heard fucking pie in the sky owners in the fucking past, you know what I mean?
And that's it. It's like the owner, it would be naive to think the owner isn't supporting, or I don't know if he's the owner, but Billy Bowie is the chairman, who owns waste tankers, and that's his business. But I would be naive to think he's not putting a bit of money in. He has put a bit of money in, and especially over COVID, he supported the club very, very well. But it feels sustainable in the sense it's not like these owners that if he disappears, like the club might have to cut back a wee bit in the squad, but it's not like, you know, these catastrophic situations that clubs have been in the past and that we were in the past probably actually, and we're lucky that he was one of the people that kind of made sure the negotiations to get us out of it. So it's to me, there are a lot of things that I could criticise about the board. I think some of the football decisions they made leading up to basically from the moment Steve Clarke left up until they appointed Derek McInnes, to be honest, there were a lot of mistakes made on football-based things mainly, a couple of admin things and all the rest of it. But they have a vision, and the vision's a good one, and we're seeing a real buzz. I think that even I don't live in Ayrshire, I'm in Glasgow, but from everything I hear, like just even around about all the towns in Ayrshire, there's a lot more Killie strips and Killie stuff, whereas it has typically been Rangers and Celtic stuff, and even in Kilmarnock, it's there's lots of Rangers and Celtic fans, and it's been
Air United strips now.
Sorry?
Air United strips now.
Oh, you don't get any of them. No. Would you want to wear one of them in public? But it's always the thing. It's hard because I'm talking about all the community stuff that Killie do and all the rest of it, and Air United are very much they're a club that are also probably in the same boat where they've got good people running them, and I wouldn't be surprised in the next 10 years we maybe see them join us in the top flight, but or hopefully join, not replaces. But I think there's a lot to be said for what's being done at the moment, and maybe this will end up looking stupid and we'll get relegated and go busting. But it doesn't feel that way. Feels like there's a lot more positivity.
I like it. Positive, mate. Positive. Right. Okay. So this Sunday, as I said, League Cup second round tie, 3 p.m. at Rugby Park, and it's looking like it's going to be a hot but rainy afternoon. Last season we had 3 meetings. 5-0 defeat early in the season. That was a sun-kissed day in Kilmarnock. That was the warmest day in Scottish history, I think, man. A 2-0 defeat at Celtic Park in January, and then finally that 4-1 defeat at Rugby Park in April, where it was very much a game of two halves. I mean, Celtic were magnificent and then bloody awful, and I dare say you'd say the same.
I think we were lucky. It was 4-0 in like 20 minutes or something, wasn't it?
That's right.
I've never in my life seen Killie concede 7. I was saying that to someone just the week before that game. I can't remember, there was another game that finished 7-0 or something, and I was like, I think we haven't conceded 7 in my lifetime. And then that game went to 4-0 after 20 minutes. I'm like, all right, well, here it is. And then you maybe just took the foot off the gas, because that was I think that was the low point of our season last season, absolutely, because it was an abject performance, and it really looked like we were kind of staring relegation at that point. And I think it's testament actually to the manager, the players, that they didn't actually let their heads go down for that, because we started playing a lot better almost straight after it.
Okay, so 0 points in 9 last season, but again, it's really incidental, isn't it? Because I mean, the only thing that's really relevant in that is what you think McInnes, because the amount of players have changed since then. So this season, McInnes has switched the formations a few times in the League Cup, but generally preferring that 3 at the back. Be it a defensive 3-5-2 as you've done against Rangers, which is almost a 5-3-2, or a more attacking 3-5-2 in the League Cup and against Hearts. So, how do you think you are going to set up on Sunday? What's your thoughts on the game ahead? How you should approach it, or how you would approach it? And generally, then as always, just tell me what your hope is for the season going ahead.
So I expect that, barring any injuries or us signing maybe a new forward that I spoke about, it wouldn't surprise me if it was the same team that started the other 2 league games, because they've played really well, and there's been very little reason to change it. I spoke about Vassell as the centre forward. If his fitness is a lot better, they might be tempted to include him, but I think he might be a couple of weeks off starting the game, to be honest. So it wouldn't surprise me if it's the exact same team that's played against Rangers and Hearts, and it wouldn't surprise me if it's a very similar strategy to the way we played against Rangers. Now, that obviously makes sense, partly because you're thinking, well, we need to defend and sit tight. However, Celtic are a different type of team to Rangers. Rangers wanted to just sling balls in and toppies, and they had all those strikers, the new ones.
Big boys.
Exactly. That was their game plan, was to try and kind of be direct. Celtic aren't like that, and it might be a different challenge for some of our players. Now, I've talked about having a young team. The defence should be quite mobile, but it's still different when you've got quality players running at you. I would say I watched the Celtic game against Aberdeen yesterday, and there were times where it looked like this team under Rodgers is still kind of starting to. It's still a work in progress, and they did get got at. And Aberdeen, the goal Aberdeen scored was obviously a horrendous mistake from Carter Vickers and amongst others. It did look like Celtic are a bit more vulnerable than they're not as vulnerable as they were when Postecoglou took over, when they were a bit of a mess for a few weeks until he got it right. But they're definitely not currently, to me, at the stage that they were at, for example, peak Postecoglou in the middle of last season.
I think that's a very fair assumption.
So it feels like a good time to play you, but at the same time, you need the stars to align in several different ways to be able to get a result. McInnes' record against Celtic, it feels to me when he was Aberdeen manager, he ran you close in a lot of games until Celtic scored, and then when Celtic scored, that was it. And that's kind of what he's got to hope for, is that basically you don't score, and if we can keep that going, it's one like that. Can we win after seeing how we played against Rangers and Hearts? Yeah, we can, but it would be foolish to go into these games expecting to win, because I don't think you can. It is similar to when you go into the Champions League, right? You're looking at these teams and you're like, well, if we play well and they don't, we can beat them. But realistically, if you draw Liverpool, you're probably going to lose, and it's the same for us with this game. But I think the main thing we want is we need to take. When I say take the game to Celtic, I don't mean attack Celtic. I mean when we get the ball, try and keep it and try and take advantage of those vulnerabilities, rather than what we sometimes saw last season, where I think it was partly because the squad was not good enough to do anything else. As soon as you won the ball back, it was just launch it 80 yards down the pitch and defend the next attack. I don't think we'll see that on Sunday unless you make us do that. But that's what we've got to try and do, and it'll be a lot. I think it'll be set pieces. We know that Rodgers previously at Celtic, set pieces with his Achilles heel. We've got lots of good players with set pieces. It wouldn't surprise me, especially Hart has looked a wee bit dodgy, I think, for crosses coming into his box this season. I thought that yesterday there was a lot of punching going on and a lot of.
But that was better than Ross Cooney.
I think that's what
getting any of that.
I think that's what we'll be playing for, and we've just got to hope for the best. And it annoys me because it used to be at this time of the season you had an even better chance, and we saw that with the Rangers game against Celtic, because you maybe had a Champions League qualifier coming up, and you're like, League Cup, all right, they're maybe going to rest if you maybe Stephen Welsh comes into the defence and there's a soft centre there. I mean, maybe he will be playing because I think Carter Vickers is a doubt, but it used to be Celtic would maybe rotate a wee bit more in these kind of games, and you're just suddenly going, oh, there's a few guys, whereas you're looking at probably a full strength, more or less, Celtic team, and not one eye on, a big game coming up. So, because what we have, I mean, spoke about the Rangers and Hearts performance, in a sense we were lucky that both times they've had European coming up, and so that factor's not there for us, but we are a better team than last year. If we can play, I think we need to play a similar way to we played in that cup semi that I spoke about at Hampden, because it was the way that you can beat a good team. Is get in their faces, try and win the ball back quickly, but when you have to defend, do it well. I think we'll lose, but I think it'll probably not be the kind of embarrassment that we probably had the 2 games at Rugby Park last season.
I think your assertions are all bang on the button. I mean, we look like we're kind of trying to get things right defensively and in the midfield. We had Hattie kind of floating about and we don't really know what's happening with him. But the fact of the matter is, attack-wise, I mean, Ross County had 2 great chances before we had a sniff at goal. And the next thing you know, they're 3-0 down. Do you know what I mean? It was like, and then you look, I know it was a mistake from the defender, but still Kyogo's made an absolute wonder goal, do you know what I mean? And the wee man just looked rapid, and the new guys, attack-wise, we all look bang on. I can see Kilmarnock scoring, and then you've kind of got to hope that it's no working up front. That's basically, I think, where Kilmarnock have go. I mean, I expect a few goals in this game, to be honest, for that reason you said, that it is a free hit, innit? Because if you're going to win the League Cup, you've got to beat Celtic or Rangers, generally Celtic and Rangers. Do you know what I mean? So,
exactly. It's the opportunities there that if we win this game, there's a chance. But so there's nothing. I mean, McInnes has said he wants to get back to Hampden. That's one of his objectives for this season. Now, nobody's going to blame him if we go out and play well against Celtic and lose. And it could be the same. You can say all that all you want if you keep getting. If we could draw you in the 3rd round or the 4th round of the Scottish Cup as well, and it's like you can't.
Exactly. You
can't get up luck of the draw, but I agree with you that we've got a chance. We've got ways of. I looked at that last season. I'm like, how on earth are we going to get in against you, because we've not got any way of hurting you. That team was so good last season that there wasn't really a way to get at them. This time it's like, well, we've got a chance, and we've got to hope that Rodgers didn't really enjoy his trips to Rugby Park when so you've got to hope for maybe a wee bit of the same of that.
Stuart Finlay, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. If he can repeat that, we've not got Chris Burke this time, but he's still on the coaching staff, so maybe we need to put the boots on Chris and
wheel him out.
Yeah, his son's playing for our under 18s now, so we'll maybe get the next generation of that in a few years' time.
Right, so what's the hope for the season then, mate?
Aye, the hope has to, the aim has to be for a top 6 spot. No, it's not going to be a failure if we finish 7th or 8th, but there's five. The five. It's not common that the big five, as the I've seen a couple of people call them. Hearts, Hibs, Aberdeen, and the two you guys finish as the top 5. But that happened last season. They've all got a lot. They've all been splashing the cash. The City clubs in a way that maybe they hadn't previously. It makes it hard for us to compete with that.
Of course.
But I look at Motherwell seem to be cutting back a wee bit. St Mirren are good and they're still good, but they've got to be the target. They finished 6th last year. If we can match that, anything beyond that's a bonus. There's no. I'm not saying we could finish higher than that, but given that we were fortunate to stay up last season, if we can finish well clear of relegation, hopefully battling for the top 6, as I say, hopefully do something in a cup competition and just generally have an enjoyable season, because that was the problem last year. There wasn't that much enjoyment about going to the games, because we had an alright record at home and we won most of the games at home and it felt like it, but there was just that sense every time you went in a away game it was like, oh, here we go again kind of thing, because we didn't win an away game in the league until the last game before the split. So we won at St Mirren, and that was the first one of the season, and we won one more against United right at the end of the season. But if we could win some away games as well, maybe that would be a good target. But no, I'm a lot more positive about this season, and hopefully it does go as well as I hope.
Brilliant, mate. Absolutely brilliant. Once again, Craig, thank you very much for taking your time out to speak to me. Very active on social media, on Twitter or X. So you want to tell people where you are on social media?
Yeah, so I'm for as long as Twitter still survives, I'll be on there, and it's Craig_Killie. As I say, I comment on everything, so you can get me on there. I'm on the Terrace podcast as well, so you at Terrace podcast for that, and just kind of covers all of Scottish football, and that's me. And feel free to. I don't mind a wee debate and a wee argument, so don't feel you can't. I don't take it personally if I'm sniping away at Celtic. It's just I enjoy a bit of backing forward with that. So. Yeah.
You're some man, Craig. Thank you once again, pal. And we'll catch up later on this season, all right?
Perfect. Yep. Cheerio. Thanks, Scott.